welcome to Pritchard Pub. Tonight we have a very special guest, James Krake. He is a sci-fi author and what else?
Cyberpunk. Fantasy.
Well, Cyberpunk I do claim is my mainstay. Yeah. Although I do mostly actually technically write epic fantasy.
Yeah.
I'm also the host of a book club and I meme on Twitter and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm a self-published author that prefers hard science fiction, let's say.
Okay.
Yeah. Before we get at it, I'll just say what up to Bat Sauce in the chat, Eveline Music, and Dino Rex Chris in the chat. Thank you guys for showing up, and we'll get right back at it.
So what is your favorite genre to read?
So I have multiple reasons that I will pick a book. Sometimes it's just curiosity. Like I 2 years ago I read Twilight out of curiosity because when I grew up, everyone was just like, "Oh, it's the worst book ever." It's actually not that bad. Like, shockingly, it's not that bad.
It got famous for a reason, I'm sure.
Yeah, the movie, the male actors were attractive.
Yeah,
teenage girls.
I never saw the movies or read the books. Same with Harry Potter. There's a lot of very.
I mean, you're not missing much, but I grew up with like, oh my God, Stephenie Meyer is the worst writer ever. Anybody can write better than this. And it's actually like, no, actually you can't. I've read a lot of indies. Twilight's significantly better.
There's usually a reason the bigs get big. And there's underratedness about it. Yeah.
I'm not the Twilight target audience, but I can understand why that appeals to 14-year-old girls. But that's like one example. It's obviously a completely different reason than why I would pick up like Dostoevsky. I do like going through the Western canon, but those are often like difficult reads. They take a lot out of me. So I definitely do read a lot of like light novels, like the Konosuba series and stuff. That's my fun reading. That and like Dan Abnett 40K material. So
the 40K material.
No idea how to recommend me books.
Oh man, you've read some of the 40K books?
Yeah. Dan Abnett is a fantastic author.
Oh man,
I've actually been sitting on a review because I'm not sure I can actually make it a good review other than just being like, oh my God, this book was so good. Holy crap.
Well, you can do that.
I do recommend Prospero Burns.
See, that's an article rather than a review when you're just like, it's so good.
So
I'm trying to build my YouTube channel, right? And I see you have good taste in books.
I really love the cover.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We have to get into it still. We've had time, unfortunately, to read, which is actually an excuse. We only read a little bit and then fall asleep. And so, oh man, we have a stack to go through, but I think we'll do this one. It's like one more before this, and then we'll get to this one. So it won't be too long, but I really like the blurb, and I must say it's really different from anything else. They're all very different, though, the books we've picked out, luckily, which, I like, but.
Yeah, it would have sucked if we just picked up like a dozen Star Wars stories.
Yeah, well, this does stand out, though. It really, really does. So I'm really excited to get into it.
Yes.
Infinite Money Glitch was a lot of fun to write.
Yeah, I bet.
And I say that because knowing that the further into that story I got, the more niche it got. I was just like, I am the only person that has all of these interests, and that's fine. Because it's the intersection of like day trading, financial scams with like speedrunners and MMOs.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Me, I am the one person in the world.
My brother would probably get behind that pretty hard.
Oh yeah, he would.
He's all about like stocks and investment, and then like, speed runs.
After we do.
Unfortunately, like the thing I'm really upset about with that book is you'll notice at about like the halfway mark, because Infinite Money Glitch is a heist, right? And that means there is a necessary scene that all heists must have where they assemble the team and they say, this is what we're going to do. This is a problem, but we'll fix it. This is a problem, but we'll fix it. This is a problem, but we'll fix it. And then, right?
I have fresh input on this too, but continue. Yes.
The problem is during that scene, I had to explain how a stock short squeeze works. Except it's not actually the stock market that they're rigging; it's the in-game economy.
That's
so
fine.
I had to describe it in a way that A, it works, B, people understand how the adventure actually facilitates the scam, and people have to realize what it actually is because it's based on the GameStop short squeeze.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
is probably the most difficult chapter I've ever written in my life, and everybody reads it and they go, I had to read that like 3 times and it still didn't really make sense, James.
Wow.
But when you okay, so as an author, when you are starting off a book or a chapter or even a paragraph and you have a goal in mind, right there you're already doing something right. And if it's such like if the story is dictating it for you, like that means you're aware of what you need for it, which means it's nothing but a good thing, in my opinion. Like I tried to lay out my whole book.
I will invite you on my stream after you read it, and you'll change your tune. You'll be like, I understand now.
Well, that's just an achievement unlocked, basically, the way I look at it, like challenge accepted. But yeah, I'm sure it was a pain in the ass. I had a few of those scenes too, just because the nature of my novel being like first person present tense, and certain things like they wouldn't know that, or like you just gotta be like hyper aware of things. So I get it.
So did you have to do a lot of research for any part of this, or was it stuff you were all pretty savvy on to begin with?
Infinite money glitch? Oh, I was just pulling on things I already know because like a lot of that book. So first of all, it's a humor book. It's the only book that's explicitly humorous. And I was just basically pulling on things that entertain me, like memes and streamer culture and speedrunners and e-girls and memes and stuff like that. I kind of challenge people that read that book to figure out what glitches I'm referencing because the characters in Infinite Money Glitch are NPCs. They're like self-aware AIs. Most of them. There are also players playing the game. But the game is like horribly coded is one of the jokes of the setting. It's just this Californian pile of expansions that conflict with each other because they're just chasing trends constantly, which causes all kinds of glitches. And each of the glitches that comes up is directly referencing a relatively famous speedrun glitch. And I've yet to find somebody able to identify all of them.
That's how you hone in your audience right there, is when you do references like that. That's because you're being cultural about it. You're sharing culture with people when you do those wink, wink, nod, nods. Like the legendary speedruns, like, you know what I mean? Like some speedrunner is going to read it.
I'll give you a hint. The main one is Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's even limited to that though, because like for me, it immediately reminded me of the glitches you can do on even like Grand Theft Auto, but specifically The Sims, the Rosebud glitch, where you just like keep getting money over and over. And
it kind of harkens back to like when I played a lot of Age of insert whatever name here games, Age of Mythology, Age of Empires, whatever, and you could just like call Uncle Vinny or whatever, type in the infinite money, it's always nice. But so like
obviously I've spent my time playing World of Warcraft and Gilded or whatever, Guild Wars, that's what it was. And every like 17 different MMOs that tried to kill World of Warcraft and failed. So I had a lot of history in gaming to pull on to build a world that one of my favorite compliments I got was a reviewer said that they felt like they had already played the game because they were so at home with the mess of a world I had made.
Nice.
That's a top tier review right there.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, if you can just show them enough of that iceberg where they feel like they already know what the rest looks like, then you've done something right there. You've sold it. You've sold the berg. So did you write this before or after Westworld? Like, did you think of this before or after Westworld? Because it does remind me.
I watched Westworld season 1 when it came out. Not to mention that Westworld, the HBO series, is a reboot of a 30-year-old series.
Gotcha. Yeah. Got you.
So
Okay.
I do see the similarities, but I was not particularly impressed by Westworld, to be honest. I don't think it had much impact on me.
No. Right. That's the thing about it, is that like it got everybody's attention, but it couldn't carry it because they couldn't follow through with it, and it kind of fell apart just like the further along it went. Like really powerful coming out of the gate, really powerful stuff, compelling idea and everything, but all we want to see is more of like the world, and like it's like as long as it was world building, it was working, but you can't just build for the sake of building. Like eventually the whole tower falls. So
my theory on Westworld is it was supposed to be a one season, maybe a 2-season plot. And then the success of season 1 was so good, they were like, no, this needs to be like 5 seasons. This has to be able to go to 5 seasons. And then when you tell a writing room, hey, this needs to go longer, you change the available conflicts, because you have to introduce stuff that isn't going to immediately wrap up. And that when you need to expand like that, you have to start tackling things like, well, what if they break out? And that fundamentally changes what drew people to it, as the company is just seeking the money.
Yes.
I grew tired of that show actually very quickly.
They also killed off the characters you liked.
I like where your mindset goes with it. You're like they could have done this. Here's the problem right here. Here's a way to fix it. A constructive, like let's patch this hole up kind of mindset. Captain Hindsight, South Park put it, but I mean, Captain Hindsight is very, like, I'm Captain Hindsight too. It's very necessary, I think, for society, because like really think about it. Like you're right, 1 or 2 season plot, right? Stop it right there. That's Westworld. Wrap it up with a bang. Make it really good and like classy and like top tier, and then do Westworld, like, and then just make Eastworld. Seriously,
World,
1 to 2.
No, you
North
can do
World.
Yeah, 1 to 2 season plot. It's its own thing. And all of them are tied together with this Isaac Asimovian, almost Lovecraftian, like singularity bullshit. So what is human? Stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you look at everything I've published, I actually like a pretty wide range of lengths in my stories, because the longer, if you go into a story knowing you want it to be like 1 million words, or if you go into it knowing you want it to be 2,000 words, those are actually different types of stories you can write.
Yeah.
And things get really screwed up when, say, a publishing agent says, "Oh, this epic fantasy needs to be below 90,000 words. You can't publish 120,000 word epic fantasy, don't you know?"
Okay, buddy?
Now you're forcing like a square peg through a round hole, right?
Right.
Like you're literally saying, but this thing needs to be this thing. It's like, no, just let the thing be the thing.
Right.
And that's where you get the best.
So, because I have such a wide range of ideas, where I can go from, hey, funny heist inside a video game, to, cyberpunk manhunt, or, hey, I read a shit ton of isekai, so let me write my own isekai and improve the genre a bit. Sometimes the story, you figure out, hey, this is probably a trilogy, or this could go on for 10 million words if I wanted to. And sometimes my stories are just like, I got to stop this. Yeah. It's going to fall apart very soon after the end of this book.
Yeah, you reach a point where you can feel the bridge is starting to shake. Like this bridge is really long and it's getting really windy. Shit, man, my knees are shaking. You're like, I gotta cut this. I gotta cut it.
Yeah, so I'm really glad that, or let me rephrase that. That's why I write so many different stories, even though it's objectively better to stick to one series and just push that series.
It probably is, yeah.
So I always like to know, if our guests, are you married, you have kids, or just dog dad?
Yeah, tell us about Krake.
I live in a dungeon down here with my dog.
Hell yeah.
Yes.
Not a pineapple under the sea, but a dungeon with something that rhymes with sea.
With Queen Pooch.
With the queen. Yep.
So yes, I do have more free time for this stuff than a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
That's
that
good.
is awesome.
Gotta take advantage of it while you can.
So do you play like any D&D stuff like that? Magic?
Yeah.
So I was big into D&D in college, which I think is a very common thing because basically you have a bunch of nerds in a room together and you can coordinate. But the problem with D&D in college is, oh, this person was a senior. They graduated and moved halfway across the country. This person, you know, is on an internship or they changed jobs or they used to have Thursdays off and now they have a lab. It was like every time I got a campaign going, semester changed, it died.
That's sad.
I just hate scheduling people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really, really want to get one going that we can play online like this for that reason. Everyone's spread apart. We're even more now in the middle of nowhere in our new house. So we're talking about doing a one shot, but I also really want to get a weekly or at least bi-weekly campaign going where we can just sit down for a few hours and have fun. And we have a one-on-one game that we do where he DMs and has like some characters, and that's pretty fun. But
yeah, I think like one-on-one games are probably where it's one-on-one games and like one-shot games. If you're going to do group play, is probably where it's going to be at, you know, in modern times, post 2020.
I really want to do weekly
briefly,
though. So
Dino, stop attacking me in the chat, goddammit.
Rex. Yeah.
So for the record too, I would recommend looking into a game like Gloomhaven or Kingdom Death. They are a genre of mega game, you could call it, which I think just supersedes Dungeons and Dragons in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I actually truly think that Dungeons and Dragons is dead. It is dead in the water right now.
The only people left are like cult followers.
Well, I'll include all tabletop. I think tabletop role playing has been eaten alive by the increasing quality of board games. Ever since Settlers of Catan opened up the market, actual board games are so fun nowadays.
That's true. They're pretty wild. Yeah, they're pretty wild.
Then there's also the growth of video games has been eating Dungeons & Dragons for ages. There is no reason to go online to play a kick in the door type of Dungeons & Dragons campaign when you could be playing Vermintide, you could be playing Diablo, you could be playing No Rest for the Wicked. You could be playing I don't know. I don't want to say World of Warcraft because it sucks, but like, you know, you could be playing an MMO. All the appeals to like, oh, I just want to show up and kill goblins is better done in video games.
Yeah. Maybe movies sometimes I could see it.
Bat Sauce, you are obsessed with the Juniper movie.
Juniper something.
No, that's calling it Juniper instead of Jupiter reminds me of Trailer Park Boys. But
that show is wild, dude.
James,
if you want to help me crowdfund $10 million to hire a programming team, I will destroy Wizards of the Coast.
I'll try.
I just don't have the skills.
Yeah.
I
know exactly how to do it. I just don't have the money.
Yeah.
Have you seen Jupiter Ascending?
Have you seen Jupiter Ascending?
I have not.
Okay. Probably for the best.
Yeah, don't watch it. It's not even one of those movies that's so bad it's fun to sit and do commentary. It's that fucking bad.
Dude. I'm saving it for Iron Seas because me it's funny. Me and her just freshly got done watching it, and then it's what we're watching this week. So I'm not about to watch it again. But I remember.
No, I'd rather claw my eyes out.
Yeah. Okay, so there's some cool things. It's cyberpunky. That might be worth checking out for you. You might get some ideas in a bad movie.
There's some parts like some
bad movies often have good ideas.
Yeah,
and some of the wardrobe and the setting is really beautiful. So they just
Yep. From a D&D perspective, he's a ranger. He's like a max level ranger with boots of flight. That's his thing. Oh, and a shield.
Okay.
Got to have that shield. So he's like a gunslinger with a shield. Yeah, that's cool. I can dig that. Like,
sure.
Isn't that like, That's kind of like modern police, harkens to that. The old turtle, the old Spartan phalanx, one step at a time.
It gives it more character than just trying to imitate John Wick, basically, right?
Yeah, I mean, eventually you got to do stuff.
I still haven't seen that.
John
What?
Wick?
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
Since
I
I
know
don't
what
have to
it's
watch
about.
Juniper this week, we're binging Wick all week. What should we watch? I'm already playing John Wick, babe. That's what we're watching. Look, it's on.
All right.
Yeah, I haven't seen the newest one either.
Yeah,
I know, I heard.
you're not missing much.
Right. Again, another example of world building. Like,
There
we're all
is
here.
no reason that they
They went hard.
God, the John Wick world building is so stupid.
They went hard, yeah. They went super hard. The Wickverse.
Yeah, they could smell that MCU money and they chased it hard, and
For
they made
normies.
one of the stupidest worlds I've ever seen in cinema.
It was MCU money in front of normies because that's who was super into it, because the MCU crowd has like Hawkeye. You don't need like a Wick. They still went and saw John Wick because it's cool and it's good, but
Good
they
soundtrack.
didn't. Yeah, and and Keanu Reeves, but like they have their superheroes already. So the only people left are like the normies who don't like really know what the difference is between the Marvel heroes, and they just think this is badass. That's a lot of my friends. That's kind of the taste that they had, and they just love John Wick. It's just like those are the people who put it on when they work out and shit. But how would you take John Wick and toss it in your Krake verse?
Krake verse. Are all of your books in the same universe?
No,
not all. I mean,
What do you
technically,
mean?
maybe. Yeah.
So the official statement is, if it's not in the Bastion timeline, it is entertainment for the people in Bastion.
Oh, cool. I like that. Yeah.
Okay. I like how you're like, no. I'm like, how the fuck do you know it?
What?
I asked him, and you're like, no.
Oh yeah. How would I know?
Yeah. Honestly, I'm not sure I can justify Infinite Money Glitch being in the Bastion timeline because there's some real world politics references in the background there.
That's right.
That make statements of fact that are true of like normal reality that are not true of the Bastion timeline. Like specifically, I referenced Kazakhstan, and Kazakhstan doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. So I'm not. So I'm stretching that statement a bit. But that said, Faceless, Gamma Coin, and Ship of Fools, despite being 1,000 years apart, are canon to each other.
Okay.
Yeah, I took that idea and ran away with it with specifically with my short story series, Chronicles of RK. That's in the same universe as my novel, but like it's just historical events. So I like, instead of talking about that cool thing that happened, let's just show you in a short story, and it's like the most important moment of that event, you know what I mean? And each time it's like it's pretty brutal. The next run I want to be each story ending with literally a different apocalyptic scenario.
Ooh,
for
that's cool.
Non-spoiler reasons from the first one, but yeah, I thought that'd be cool because, like, I don't know, man, I'm really into this younger Dryas theory with the meteor impact, and then like looking into all those just all those theories, people trying to explain the origin of the moon, stuff like that, and all of it just kind of like has all these different Earth catastrophes, and also a huge fan of history and mythology, so that like brings you to all kinds of different, Ragnarok type events, so yeah, a whole book with short stories about that would be cool. Is all I'm saying. My world ends a lot, so I get what you're saying. Like, that's why I dig your idea of like it's entertainment for the people of Bastion. It's clever.
For sure.
Yeah, so there'll be things like the game in Infinite Money Glitch is Reborn Isles 5. And I think in one of these books, I'd have to actually confirm which one it is. No, so like I remember now. In Low Key Connections, the main character is like has like a raid night for his MMO that he plays with his friend, and he's playing Reborn Isles 3. And I like making those kinds of connections.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
Like the third one. Yeah, because like it just like implication, right? Like implication in writing. It's so much, and then like implication in world building shows you how powerful it is. Because like when I say like warp speed and faster than light travel is not possible, that means so many things just for the world that are unspoken, that just have to be a fact, and it's the same thing like oh well, can people magically communicate with each other like instantaneously, like I don't know, something like the internet, or
that destroys the setting real fast.
Yeah, dude. So yeah, or like, oh, you can just create food out of thin air.
So
what?
Your world.
Are you familiar with the Tippyverse?
The Tippyverse? T-I-P-P-Y?
Tippy. T-I-P-P-Y. Tippyverse. No. Made by Tippy.
No.
So this is a relic of something I read when I was in college, so about 10 years ago. I highly recommend everyone who's writing read the Tippyverse. You have to be familiar with the rules as written of Dungeons and Dragons. And I don't mean like weird edge cases like, oh, in 5th edition, if you're blind and they're blind, you're actually fighting normally. I'm talking about like, so in a setting where you can teleport in assassins to the king's castle, what does an army actually look like? And he took all the spells as written and took them to their logical conclusions and explains how it is just a hellscape of dysfunction.
Yeah,
and it is one of the most enlightening things that a world builder can ever read, in my opinion.
So it's like a book about. It's a book criticizing.
I don't even remember. You'd probably find it on Google or something.
Okay, I'll look into that. What were you saying? Okay.
I was going to ask, do you have any characters, like from like recurring characters in any of your books that are just in the same world but not really related?
So technically, yes. I mean, it's a little silly to say that like my series Undying Emperor, which is literally the life story of the guy that conquered the world. Obviously, everyone's a recurring character in there, right? But that's a standalone contained thing. For Bastion, I currently only have 2 books. The 3rd book in the Bastion Blackstone series is going to come out in a few months. I just need to commission the artwork and finish copy edits on that. I have a spin-off that is going to have some shared characters, but not many. Like the Bastion, the mega city, has like an AI that rules it, and so any story that takes place in Bastion is going to interact with her.
Cool.
But there are some more subtle characters that recur because I really like the stuff that Brandon Sanderson did with his Universe Travelers. I thought that was a cool idea. So there is some of that coming together that I'm hoping readers will start piecing together.
So like some like planeswalkers, basically, and interdimensional travelers.
So there are a few immortal characters.
Gotcha.
For various reasons and methods. There are characters alive at the time of Bastion Blackstone that are still alive 1,000 years in the future. Ship of Fools. Yeah. Now, Ship of Fools, my second book, is a very contained story because it's like one ship is stranded deep in space and they need to turn on their distress signal at some point. But if the ship they signal is an enemy ship, they'll get nuked.
Yeah.
If it's a friendly ship, they might get rescued, and they don't know. And that's the entire conflict, and everything falls apart because they don't know if the ship, 2 light years away, is actually friendly.
Kind of like
a big deal.
Yeah, kind of like some World War II submarine stuff going on there.
Yes,
I like that. Yeah.
So there are references that some of the characters make about things that happened in the past, specifically religious references, actually, that are talking about characters alive during Bastion Blackstone doing things.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to imbue some of those references myself. Because I wrote my novel, then I wrote the RK Chronicles, the short stories, just fleshing out historical events. So like when I go back and start editing my novel one last time before I release it this year,
Sure.
I'm gonna have fun like injecting little little mentions like, oh, who do you think I am? This person who happens to be this character from the story.
Nice.
Yeah. The Mad Queen or whatever.
Yeah, so I had to make a full calendar timeline as I'm writing these stories. Because, for example, in chapter 1 of Gamma Coin, the POV character is reading a news report about a riot that happened, and he's reading it for his own reasons. No, John, I haven't played Castlevania in a while. That game was torture. Now he's watching the news reports because he's appreciating the way that they're doing the spin, and he doesn't really care that private security just killed a bunch of people.
Yeah.
But in book 3, one of the characters is one of the security guards from that riot. So I do have to have this timeline where everything's lining up and cross-referencing, even for simpler stuff like when did Elliot go to California? Because he went to California 3 years prior to these books and did some stuff that is relevant to book 3.
Yeah.
And is also relevant to why he's super demoted.
Yeah. Dude, I totally get that. Like needing to connect them all in some way, because when I started Spirit Animals, it was hard to actually pull the trigger on that, because it's like you feel like you're starting over, but you're starting with experience, obviously, and with a plan and all that. But like you can't help but also feel like, oh, blank slate. Oh, cool. So I totally get.
Yeah, I'm always a little worried I'm going to introduce something that retroactively makes a mistake earlier.
Yeah. Same.
For example, in book 3, I finally explain how the distribution system works in this megacity. Because Bastion is like an 80-story skyscraper nest where most people never even touch the ground because there's just bridges and trains. So you never go down. And you can't, generally speaking, you can't leave the city either. And in books 1 and 2, it's just kind of like whatever. It's a megacity. And in book 3, I finally explain that the reason there's 4 strata to the city is because between each of those is a distribution layer, where it's like specifically floor 20 is all the autonomous cars that move goods and services around.
Makes sense. Specialized layer.
Never came up in books 1 and 2.
Yeah. Well, iceberg theory. Why you got to talk about the distribution if you don't got to talk about it, right? You can have somebody.
I'm comfortable with what I did here, but if I keep introducing stuff like that, eventually I'll screw something up.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So, well, it's tread carefully, sir. Tread carefully. Yeah. So we were going to talk about. I think originally when we booked the show, we were going to talk about some Warhammer stuff. I think. And like what goes into
we were talking about that. I have some thoughts about what it would take to make a rival to Warhammer.
Yeah, I'm actually working on that right now, so I'm curious. I'd love to talk about it.
So the first thing that people need to realize, this might come across as shots fired, but lots of people have made settings that have the same function that Warhammer 40K does, where it's like facilitates being, a far future military sci-fi battle simulator. Lots of people do that, and not many of them very successful. Shout out to Galaxy's Edge as being a very, very well-written military sci-fi story, even though it's directly attacking Star Wars. Okay, sure. They've gotten a lot of success for good reason. They are not capable of being a Warhammer 40K competitor because they are a single format creation. They are just novels. Sure, you can read them paperback or you can listen to them in audiobook or whatever. But because it is not fundamentally interactive, those stories can't engage with consumers the way Warhammer 40K can. And I say that knowing a lot of people are 40K fans purely for the books. Some of the books, are shockingly good, and the world lore is actually top notch.
Yeah, no, it is. Except for you can there's some contrivances but you can see where they just kind of filled in the blanks, and it's self-aware enough where it's forgivable. Like there's some, like for example, just some nuances with the orcs. It's goofy more than anything,
right?
But we all love it. So go on.
So that leads to the conclusion that if indies want to make a true alternative to 40K, first of all, they should be considering the alternatives that already exist. There are a lot of war games that already exist. There's BattleTech, which has issues. There's Land and Sea, which is a spin-off of BattleTech, basically. There's Malifaux. There's Rifts. There's Bolt Action. There's War Machine, War Hordes. There are a lot of other games that already exist, and I don't think it's a good idea to just run to a whiteboard and start from scratch like this, but people do.
Right. And yeah, when I say Warhammer alternative, really it is important to differentiate game or story, right? Because it really does touch on a lot of those things. It even does video games, and it's about to branch off into TV and movies. They could look at what Fallout did and purposely go out of their way to try to eat Fallout's lunch on quality and everything, and become a true foundational keystone in the cultural zeitgeist. That's what we're going to see. And to truly compete with that is to make video games and make tabletop and make novels and everything. So
it would take an army of diverse indies.
Yeah. So all we can do as authors is try to cover our bases and maybe have something that's cool enough to develop into the war simulator scale video game movie.
Now, I do think there are ways that you can approach it as a paradigm shift. I think a lot of inspiration can be taken from the way that Jeff works in Helldivers 2. Are you familiar with Jeff?
No, I haven't played Helldivers. I know.
So,
I know.
Are you vaguely familiar with Helldivers?
Starship Troopers, right? Basically.
Sure. Takes a lot of inspiration from Starship Troopers, but I will die on this hill. It is more inspired by post 9/11 than it is by original politics.
Word.
It is very 9/11 influenced.
Interesting. So there's a 9/11 event with some bugs, and then we.
It is the way. So Super Earth is very clearly America.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is just a.
It always fact. Is.
Well,
it always is.
Because America's number one, motherfucker.
I know. It's because it's true. God. Anyway. Isn't Earth really America anyway? But yeah, go on. Anyway.
The guys working on Helldivers were born in the 90s. Yeah. They might think they're being objective and just be like, oh, this is how things really work. They may think they know what they're satirizing, but they're satirizing what they grew up through. And Starship Troopers came out in the 70s or whatever. It was far more influenced by Vietnam and Korea, or depending on the exact date it came out. And America has changed since then. And so you can say it's a Starship Trooper clone, but it's definitely a post 9/11 Starship Trooper clone.
Oh, yeah. I think to say anything as a clone, you have to really be a clone. For my personal opinion, but yeah, go on.
But there is a game master at that company. One guy decides which planets and why and how are getting what invasions and when, based on interacting with the community.
Sick.
So the key example is the community theorized that there were secret supply lines determining which planets would lead to which invasion. And the community came up with the theory that, well, okay, the Terminids have broken through containment like this, but if the supply line theory is correct, then what we could do is come around, cut off the supply of Terminids, And then the planets that have been isolated that can be surrounded and should be at least weakened. And the game master was just like, challenge accepted. And changed what all the missions were to facilitate that. And that is like such a good way of engaging the community with getting them into the universe and invested in it. That it is decisions like that that made Helldivers 2 as successful as it was before the PlayStation Network disaster.
That's how it's done. Yeah,
if
it reminds me of Minecraft.
Sorry?
They do. It reminds me of Minecraft too, how they answer the call, so to speak. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, so if you wanted to make a new IP similar to Warhammer, I do think that you could have you could be approaching it as, hey, the factions we're going to be developing and expanding, and the way that the official map is going to develop is going to be based on community interaction and support. Yeah. I think there are ways to do that, to get people drawn in on that aspect. Because in 40K, it's grim darkness that war never ends, and it's intentionally stagnant. So if you come at it from a different angle like that, I think you can get a lot of advantage.
Yeah. Where you try to, like, if you're not going to do the tabletop, try to incorporate what the tabletop is bringing to the table. Just like movies and okay, we'll group video games in with tabletop, but they're kind of like doing the same thing as movies. So you'll have to have a visual aspect to that too. So like, let's say you're doing a series of graphic novels that the community gets to choose something. Like, well, let's use Helldivers, right? Let's use Helldivers, and let's also use
it could be things like
the
community holds votes as citizens of the various empires, of like, there's a referendum being held on, does the Tau Empire support the Necrons here?
Right. And like, based on the results of some of these, it can determine like what the next book that gets written is. This is cool. They support Tau's right to choose. So let's examine that in a novel or something. I don't know, like a novella. I could see that. Or no, it would be a graphic novel. That's what we established for the.
I would advocate producing in every single format you can get competent people producing in.
Yes. It would be the reason. The reason novels are gravitated to is just because one person can write that. It's hard, but it's easy because you don't need to like wait for the artist to finish your 16th page or whatever it is,
Yeah, a good writer can finish a book in 2 months.
Yeah.
A graphic novel, like 100-page graphic novel, that's easily 8 months of work.
Yeah, you get a colorist. Dude. Yeah, there's too many. There's moving pieces, different schedules and everything. So, Bat Sauce says it's stagnant because the fantasy had an ending and people didn't like it.
Yeah, but they're stagnant and they're stagnant.
Yeah.
A living world is something that does. You don't need to end a living world.
That's true. Yeah, because if it's living, it implies that it'll just keep going, regardless, which is a beautiful feeling to capture within your world building. The idea that this world is independent from even the author. Lord of the Rings kind of does that, I would say. You can tell which IPs do it, where they just feel like their own thing. Like, seriously, like with Lord of the Rings, the language, just like that little nuance with Tolkien being a language scholar and like actually making a real Elvish language, it's just wild. It's just wild. Like, it does exist by that virtue. Like, Elvish exists. Maybe there wasn't any like magical elves or whatever running around, but there it is, right there. You can go learn it. So
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah. What's your take on power armor?
So I have interesting opinions of power armor because the strong stuff is fun. Like let's be real. Like the idea of like a super soldier getting in a power suit to get even stronger is just fun.
It's timeless, in my opinion. But
yeah, no, I love Starship Troopers. I like armor. I like Forever War. I'm a huge Halo fan.
yeah,
and yet I don't really use it in my writing.
right. Right.
So right now I am writing. Working title is called Bioweapon, which is contemporary with Ship of Fools, which is basically my frustration with Halo being sold to Microsoft.
Yes. No. Being sold to Microsoft.
Yeah.
Oh,
Halo
I thought you were gonna bring it up. I
so
thought you were gonna
good
bring
when
up the
put
show.
together.
I'm like, oh fuck, the show's so bad, dude.
Oh, it's so bad.
Yeah. It's so bad.
So I took a lot of the good aspects from Halo and just kind of put my own spin on it. And one of the things I did is there is this group called the Adaptive Combat Corps, which are basically just Spartans.
Yeah.
Without the force fields, which, by the way, they didn't have force fields until right before combat evolved.
The next question is going to be what you think of personal shields, but go on, continue, and then I'll
They're
tell you what
nonsense.
I think. Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you what I think of power armor after you finish, and then we'll go to personal shields.
So the way I made an intentional choice that leads to, in my opinion, a lot of tense situations because the idea I had was these super soldiers are meant to be like permanent soldiers, because after the war, the plan was basically to put them on ice to hop them around, and the training them didn't know when they would actually be put to use. They didn't know who they'd be put to use against. It could be like decades later. It could be centuries later. These guys are finally going into the army or going into the fray, right? They chose to err on the side of safety rather than features, because any computer system can theoretically be hacked. Like you might say, well, for everything we can even imagine today cannot do anything to these guys. The problem is 100 years later, there's going to be breakthroughs. The power armor that these guys have has almost no computers in it whatsoever. It's basically all analog. All of the things that make them super are basically what they do to Space Marines in 40K, which is at the genetic level, where they're bigger, stronger, tougher. They metabolize poisons better and such. They heal faster. They don't age particularly much. Anything that they could do at the time that would not be a liability in the future.
Yeah, dude, that's it's kind of what I'm gonna be getting at with the power armor, but continue. Like when I say timeless, this is kind of what I'm getting at, but continue.
So the follow-up there is those are just the people. The plan is the expectation is always that they're going to be deployed to whatever the current forces are to support them as like the best soldiers, basically Captain America. And what do you do with your best soldier? You give them the best weapon you have at the time. So they're supposed to get equipped with the latest and greatest weapons that they're supposed to be able to just pick up and use.
Yeah.
And the latest weapons should be hardened against the latest attacks. But the characters are basically just guys that have this ambiance of danger that everyone's afraid of them.
Yeah, we can see case examples of real historical use of advanced weapons with
wonder weapons.
Yeah, World War I and II, man. America basically, like, the war was over before the atom bomb because there's a reason they were kamikazing us. Let's just say that. That's all they could do.
Right.
So, it was like magic. Our bullets are blowing up before they even reach the airplane, and then creating a shotgun pattern, knocking it out of the sky like it's a clay pigeon. And it's like 90% accurate, like just 90% success rate, mowing down their stuff. Not even fair, but I think that whole idea is super interesting, because it is what war chases. It's like chasing technology. War is almost a social contract to see who can just what's the word? Pin the opponent first technologically. And I guess another way to do that is to just make them not want to fight anymore, which is where the brutality of war comes in. If they don't want to fight anymore, you win. So Yeah, it's like sumo wrestling.
War is the worst form of diplomacy, as they say.
Yeah. What a language to speak without using any words. You're just using violent actions. It's like the language of violence. It's pretty crazy, man. I'm pretty anti-war, but
yeah, war is not a good thing, but it's also unavoidable.
Yeah. No, I'll recognize that. Like, I will be the first person to do something about the home intruder in my house, or, whatever. When people make comparisons to like the border and your own home, or perhaps like your next door neighbor, that's valid. That's super valid. Like because everything is kind of like a microcosm of everything else. Like your home very much is like analogous to the country or like the business that you work at, because the business is paying for your home that you live in, and on and on and on. It's in America, down the line. It's actually fascinating. We're getting into some trippy stuff now, but like fascinating how like
no, it's good stuff. I made what I think is an interesting decision with my Space Marine stuff, because it technically takes place right after Earth lost the Civil War.
Yeah,
it is a interplanet versus colony planet war, but I set my stories right after Earth lost.
Yeah,
but the war hasn't fizzled out. There are still like renegades and criminals, and some people haven't gotten the message, and problems keep happening because the new government wasn't really prepared to suddenly be the galactic government.
Yeah.
And that leads to the super soldiers are all hiding, essentially, because they're wanted by the new government, because the colonies aren't the ones that made the super soldiers.
Yeah. Well, why? How could they be? They don't have the resources for that.
Well, actually, that's another setting they kind of do. That's actually what caused the war. Was the colonists were trying to get ahead of terraforming, and like the official like black-pilled answer is Earth got upset about trade regulation for faster and light fuel and can cause the war. But the official reason for the war is these colonists were genetically modifying their children further and further and further and further away from base human, and it got to the point where they were breeding their children in such a way that if they were put on Earth, they would die. And that caused a moral panic of like, you can't do that to your children.
Are they even technically human, bro? No, that's a good conflict, because it's like you're setting it up on both sides. Like the one side you have the authoritarian, douchebag, governmental, regulatory, keep the little man down, crybaby government waging war like they always do for whatever fucking reason they can think of. And on the other side, you have the my body, my choice. This is my freedom. I'm going to do what I want to my children, and that has its own.
So the government put their foot down on, if this person wouldn't be able to survive on Earth, you have committed a crime.
That's a good.
So there are, which it leads to this funny situation of Earth has a lot of mutants that they've created. Like they have very clearly genetically engineered people for advanced intelligence, or the ability to metabolize carbon monoxide without dying and such.
Yeah.
Which led to them just getting called hypocrites.
Yeah. But I mean, what they'll do is what they do in real life. They'll just deflect and ignore and say, "Oh, look at the time," and like just move on over and over again until people stop talking about it, and just keep doing what they got to do, because their genetic modification is okay. Their torture is okay.
It's fine when we do it.
Their war is okay.
Those savages don't know what they're doing.
And in fact, when they're modifying their children in ways that they don't realize is cleverly basically the same idea as whatever the colonists in your story are doing, because that's always the case. There's always something going on that's like, hey, isn't that kind of the same thing that you guys are like upset about over there? You're doing it right there. You know what I mean?
The super soldiers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, so power armor, the reason I bring it up, I say it's timeless because I think it's the end result of, I mean, sci-fi, fantasy, whatever, both. Because, fantasy, maybe not so much, but even Gandalf has his bubble shield. That's his own kind of power armor in a way, right? That's more personal shield talk, but you get what I'm saying. Like you could summon Daedric armor. Like
so you could argue that all of human endeavors is to build tools to make ourselves better. So like obviously the end state of war is to build a tool that makes us better.
Yes. The final result is we can blow up a planet. That's why the Death Star is so iconic. It's like it's a very simple idea.
Did you watch Cyberpunk Edge Runners?
I did not. I heard good things though.
Did you play the Cyberpunk video game?
I did not. My brother shared it with me though.
Very 80s idea that caught on because of a mechanic contrivance, actually. Like the actual history of cyberpsychosis is he wanted to introduce all these mechanical implants to make yourself like a better street samurai into this game back in the 80s. And he needed a reason that the players wouldn't just rip out all their flesh and go full Adeptus Mechanicus, trust in steel. So he introduced this idea that the more you cut out of your body, the less human you are and the more likely you are to go crazy.
That's cool.
Well, it's also kind of fucking stupid, in my opinion.
Well, yeah.
Because, we have people who lose arms and legs and body parts and replace them with prosthetics, and it doesn't drive you nuts.
Yeah. That's been tested. What a better take on that is what Fallout does, and that's when you put your brain in a jar. The company, it's the same thing that companies do any step of the way. They claim it's perfect and that it'll work, and it does technically work, but then it has unforeseen side effects. So, like 200 years in the future, all these brains in this like Walmart fluid, this Walmart preservative fluid that they're floating in, they just go nuts because like whatever like additive is in there seeps in over time. So they're just like rambling gibberish, but they're still conscious. It's like a living hell, actually, if you think about it, because they're clearly insane.
Unless you're Mr. House.
Yeah, he did it right. He's an actual mummy that has like his brain hooked up to
a jar.
Is it in a jar? I can't remember. It's been a while.
I'm 99%. It's a privately owned brain in a jar. Because you can kill him by exposing his fluids to germs.
Got you. I remember his body coming out, and it's like this mummified, but just a body.
It's been about 15 years since I played New Vegas. Maybe I'm wrong.
It could be another brain in a jar. There's a lot of brain in jars. And the more I think about it, that's probably one of the more legit ways to dodge the apocalypse. But like, dude, that insanity. But yeah, anyway, that was my whole point. Is like that's Fallout's version is the with the monkey's paw as going insane over time because of a reason, especially like some sort of technological or quote unquote magical reason. In Fallout's case, it's magical because you become an immortal by fusing with machines like that. So it's like magic in a sense, right? Yeah, that's how they do it. It makes sense because the chemicals are seeping in over time. It's not just like cutting a finger off or whatever. I don't know, but yeah.
So are you afraid or awaiting the brain implants?
I am awaiting for my wife because she's missing her tailbone. She lives with a lot of pain every single day. So yeah, if the sooner anybody can come up with something that can get that can help her just like shut pain off, that would be nice. Yeah, it would improve her quality of life too.
Sure. So a lot of people think that like brain implants are like Satan.
Oh, I can see that. I wouldn't get it personally, but
yeah. So that because I like virtual reality stuff, it's very common in Bastion that like most people have neural implants because it facilitates like Sword Art Online or Dot Hack kind of stuff where you just go into the fantasy world because you can't leave the city, but hey, you can jack in Matrix style, right?
It's another timeless idea.
Yeah, so there is a catch with that, which is okay. So technically, there could be very adverse reactions or hackers that now have direct access to your brain.
Yeah,
that is a known problem, but it doesn't happen because like if that was happening, like the setting would break down for for one thing, right?
Mhm.
The actual answer is the only way to stop that is the government shows up and kills those people judiciously.
Well, and then there's a whole series of novellas. It's like there's your Tom Clancy books, Krake. You just do these different missions. It's your who's that author? Butcher. He does
Jim Butcher?
he does the Wizard. The
Dresden
Wizard.
Files?
Yeah, the Dresden Files. It could be like your Dresden Files, where it's these
Yeah,
different.
so I've got one idea that is in queue to be written. It's going to be called Kill Switch Engineer.
Nice.
Because in Bastion, there is one AI. They managed to make one AI once, and they have not been able to do it since. Partly because they fired the scientists that knew what actually caused it. But there's obviously a bunch of research going on, even decades after the fact, into how to make another artificial intelligence because they need it for military reasons, right?
Right.
But the problem is that it's a very legitimate fear that a self-programming AI that is smarter than its own creators, because the AIs can basically breach containment. And do all the winter mutant nonsense from Neuromancer or Skynet, basically. And the government is fully aware that that is a genuine problem.
Mm-hmm.
And they're aware that they basically got lucky that the first AI didn't kill everybody. So that leads to the development is in these isolated facilities where they're in the middle of nowhere with all these researchers working on it, specifically so that it can't get back to a population center. And there is one guy there whose only job is to shut it off by any means necessary.
Yeah. And those guys historically exist. There's those dudes that go down with the ship, so to speak.
Oh, I'm not gonna say. You assume he goes down with it. I say he shoots it out.
Right. I'm just saying that's what it evokes in my mind, is the person who draws the short straw and has to stay behind for the good of everybody or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one guy so psychologically damaged that he can't be manipulated anymore.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think that'll be a lot of fun to write as a shoot 'em up.
Oh yeah. I'm developing this sci-fi character who is essentially like a Ronin or a samurai type, but also a gunslinger. So he's got his knife, he's got his sword, and then he has his gun. Those are his three things.
Yeah, of course.
It's all you need. So I get these cool images in my head where he has the knife in one hand and the sword in the other, or the knife and the gun, or whatever. And he's not very developed yet, but I want him to. I really like the idea of this dude just is a civilizer or a peacekeeper, almost like a wandering. I don't know how to put this. Just like a wandering civilizer through the galaxy in a way, like a Ronin. He's going to show up and he's going to fix your problems. God damn it! And anybody who has whether you
You're describing a Western.
A Western, basically. Oh, they show up and they just force.
The Lone Stranger shows up to town. Yeah, there's no sheriff. He takes care of it.
Okay. Well, what if there is okay, I suppose that would be the bad sheriff plot then. If there is a sheriff that's weak, he would still yeah, because that's what I'm thinking. He kicks the door in and he's like, what the hell's your guys' problem? And then they're like, we can't help it. Slaps him around. I'll go fix it. And then he goes and he fixes it. He's also
that'd be a successful story, man.
Yeah. I mean,
if you can make him likable.
Well, that's the thing. I want him to be a cannibal as well and assert dominance by eating his enemies. Because I've been replaying Fallout and the cannibalism thing. I think that is a neat little. It's facilitated by post-apocalypse, but if I could somehow make that make sense within sci-fi and have this very weird, like mixed character where he's a good guy. I'm thinking almost like maybe I need to make him like a vampire or something. You know what I mean? The good guy vampire
Have you
trope.
played Metal Gear Rising?
No, I haven't.
Well, you should. One of the main mechanics is because you're fighting cyborgs. In order to heal, because like you can use guns, but it's definitely a bullet speed hack and slash. But in order to heal, you have to cut open the cyborgs you're fighting, rip out their spines, and consume their regenerative nanobots.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which probably hits on a lot of the what you think of as the cool factor on that, but it's not cannibalism per se because they're just brains. So ripping it, the spine isn't flesh; it's just the way that the cyborg body is working, kind of deal.
Yeah.
And you still get that like Mortal Kombat fatality, just ripping the dude's spine out and crushing it. And
yeah, I just like the idea. He gets all gangster with the kingpin of the bad guys. You know, they're talking shit to each other or whatever, and he can just openly make jokes about like eating him, like Hannibal Lecter style. And then he does in front of all of his dudes, and everybody, including the reader, is just off put. And he's in charge now. You know what I mean? Like
I wouldn't do it, to be honest.
Right. That's it's still a work in progress, but I don't know. I get these ideas, these flashes, and I'm just like, there's something there. It's almost like a runaway D&D character at its heart, but I don't know. I need to work on it more. Like I said, perhaps vampirism or something. Or like you said, the spines of androids, you know, that makes a little bit more sense too. But the idea of asserting dominance.
I mean, if you go to like Korean manhwa, you can find a lot of very successful stories with the idea of a predator.
Yeah.
That's typically restricted to monsters, though, where the idea is that he kills and eats the monster to steal the monster's ability.
Right. See, that's cool. That's kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't transgress into cannibalism usually.
Right. my first thought, because I don't like straight out and out cannibalism is kind of lame unless there's some reason. Like it would have to be tied to the character's backstory. Like, oh, he was part of the Donner Party. Here, never got over it. Or you know, like you said, maybe he's part cyborg and like his thing is he eats other cyborgs regenerative fluid, you know, that freaking makes sense. That's cool.
Son.
Yeah, dude, that's cool. I just think of the white milk blood from Alien, you know.
Yeah,
which is fine. That's basically what it is. Yeah, I forgot where I was going with that, but yeah, that's a freaking Ronin gunslinger samurai dude that I'm tossing around. And I like the idea that he has a droid with him, just like a total like classic like droid that only he can understand, you know, that trope, and he refers to it as his dog.
Difficult. I'm gonna warn you against that.
Yeah.
Having a character that can't traditionally communicate is very hard to keep engaged into a scene.
It is, yeah. I have a character that doesn't speak the same language as everybody in my novel, and holy shit is it hard. And it like I actually had to just do a chapter inside of his head just to kind of do a baseline, you know, like let's re-baseline this so we know where this dude's at, you know.
Yeah, I skip the language issue quite a bit in Undying Emperor, my fantasy novel. So far I haven't pushed things too much because I basically just say there's only two languages that are relevant, and the named characters know both. Because it's like saying, yes, this Frenchman does speak English. Like,
yeah,
whoop-de-doo.
I like you know, you can get away with a lot by just simply saying that he has an accent or it's a broken dialect, something like that. It says enough.
One of the plot arcs, Lucius, the main character, is made the governor of this island with a gold mine on it. The natives don't speak common. and which hamstrings him very early on, and he basically gets stuck needing translators, which was an okay plot device for a while, and it kind of got to the point where I was just like, he's been on this island for a month, he's picked up enough of the language, and they've picked up enough of common that they can communicate to each other. It sucks if that people can't communicate easily in a story.
It really makes it very difficult, like just like real life. So you get the choice between a powered sword that can cut through anything, so basically a lightsaber, or power armor, and one
stop the sword.
What?
Can the power armor stop the power sword?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the whole point, right? And one cybernetic implant on top of that. So you get one or the other with the armor or the sword, and you get one cybernetic implant also.
Always take the armor, because you can always just pick up a bigger gun. Oh, come on.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you don't need the sword that can cut anything, technically. For sure. Better to have protection, man. Longevity, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, like, most casualties come from like surprises.
That's true.
You look at the history of war, and like most people who die from like stepping on a mine because they didn't realize the road was mined.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Or they got like their karate got nicked. Something stupid.
Yeah, shrapnel. You're getting bombarded by artillery. There's nothing that you can even do except bunker down.
Yeah, dude. Trench warfare, brutal, horrific, and awesome at the same time. Just like
now we have drones delivering the bombs. Lovely future we're in.
Yeah, swarms of drones that can just identify human faces and exterminate. Like, sure, everybody have your Second Amendment AR-15 in your 9mm ready to go in the house. Oh my God, a swarm of fucking drones. What are you gonna do? You know what I mean? Like, and then they're specialized too. First, the swarm comes in and like takes out key targets, and then the secondary ones that are specialized to like kidnap, the other key targets come in, and they're like spiders, and they just like wrap them up like Frodo and carry them off.
I prefer the relatively large robots over the small robots.
Yeah.
War
of the Worlds.
No. So in Bastion, there are attack drones that are like the size of a car, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And the purpose of them is they're intimidating, and they carry multiple weapons for whatever situation they find themselves in.
They're a tank, essentially.
Yeah. They are basically autonomous tanks.
Yeah. That's cool. Just
I don't think we're really going to see drone swarms, because like even if you make them really cheap, a quadcopter able to carry a lethal explosive, each of those drones is going to be like $100 each.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
plus the grenade.
Yeah.
And you have to somehow make them not die to like a basic EMP device.
That's fair.
I think it's literally like something that could happen every once in a while, but it's literally going to be too expensive.
That's fair. Like, so you're imagining like suicide bomber drones, essentially. Like
those kinds of things, like what we're seeing right now in the Ukraine.
Is that what's happening over there?
Yeah, there are videos of Ukraine sending in grenade drones.
Interesting.
They're doing them as like onesie twosies on isolated people.
Yikes.
I think they're too expensive. People don't realize how cheap an artillery shell is.
Yeah. You put a human there. If they die, you don't have to pay them after all.
Well, you have to pay them more. What are you talking about? You have to reimburse their family.
I know. It was a joke. Like, you promise money and then, you died. But yeah, no, you definitely got to like make it right with the family. But
not to mention that swarms of suicide drones are kind of boring stories.
Yeah.
Like how do you escalate a fight when it's just an arbitrary number of tiny things are blowing up, and if you miss one of them, you die?
because it's a. Have you played Gears of War?
Yeah.
I love that game. The first one
The
specifically.
first one was fantastic. Yeah.
So good. Do you remember the Krill?
Not really.
The Krill were the general. What was his name? General whatever. The badass locust. He's like he's taller. General badass name. Whatever. He could like
or whatever you mean.
yeah.
Which game you're in.
Yeah, whatever it is. He could like control these clouds of bat-like alien things called the Krill, and it's like
Yeah,
part of
so the Gears of War, like when you see those things in video games, you're usually given a machine gun and you're basically just like spray at it and hope. Like the infection forms in Halo, right?
Yeah.
If the infection forms in
example.
Halo were cannon sized, you wouldn't be able to do anything about them because in canon, an infection form is the size of your thumb.
Yeah. Are you talking about
you can't shoot that?
You're talking about the Flood?
Yeah.
Same idea with the Flood, by the way. So you could tell the same story. What I'm getting at is you have something like you have your suicide drones, but really that's just the core idea of whatever this weapon is. This modern sci-fi super weapon that basically as soon as there's an opening, an entire population is doomed, and not in a way that is like not in a way that's like Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I'm talking about the buildings are untouched, the cars don't even have a scratch on them, and the people are all dead, right? That kind of thing. There's not even a scratch anywhere else, but as soon as the shields dropped, these entire 3 cities just stopped existing, basically, because the meticulous AI swarm just kind of worked through the population in like an hour.
This
that
is
kind
Gears
of thing.
War?
So this is not in Gears of War, but that was kind of the implication, is like you were always in some sort of like position where like I don't remember if there's shields in Gears of War, but there was like maybe like a frequency or like that. No, they're allergic to light. That's right. It was like vampire rules. They're allergic to light. So the light is kind of like the shield, and they're always on the outside of it, and then that can always be like soiled at any moment if like the light gets blocked or the sun goes down or whatever it is. But you get my point. Like you just have a plot where people are inside of whatever the protective thing is, and the swarm bots are on the outside. And like, yeah, essentially you wouldn't like constantly advance the plot with these things, because like you said, it would be like fencing. It's like if you don't get it, you're dead. And people would just be like, it'd be like a meat grinder under the wrong circumstances, which would be like probably, without the right protection, like you said, a simple EMP or the threat of that. The Matrix touched on that very good. Actually, the Matrix. My whole point, it would be like a 9/11 event. That time the shields of Bastion fell and the swarms like came in. They launched the nuke essentially, and the nuke is in the form of these advanced AI, genocide AI drones. Because just imagine. Have you seen videos of our industrial equipment helping us farm? It is like,
oh sure, like the combines and stuff, and the laser weeders.
It's crazy. It's just how automated it is, and how intelligent it is without having zero actual intelligence to it. Like that's how I feel like robots could actually just call us like wheat, or chaff. They would just like gather us up like we're a crop, and then rip the heads off of these guys and toss these guys in the cage over here. War of the Worlds touched on that good also.
I'll be reading War of the Worlds later this year. I'm interested in it. Nice classic piece of sci-fi there. Kind
of the same idea. The aliens were like harvesting us. That's the word I was looking for, harvesting. The AI swarms would just harvest us as soon as there's an opening. But like, I can't argue with what you're saying, like about the EMP thing. So that would be the balance, like it would be more like the threat of this thing existing, like mutual destruction, kind of like we do with nukes. This super weapon. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
So I'm going to reiterate, like, it at a storytelling level, a good fight needs a way to progress through stages. I try not to ever, like, even if you're talking about a gunfight, those are usually squad encounters, so you can lose squad members.
Yeah, so it can ebb and flow. Yeah.
Right. So you don't want to set up you don't want the assumptions of your universe to lead to rocket tag, basically. That's like one of the reasons that Dune made the assumptions that it made, was because it was correct. Like, atomic weapons just solve most things, so you need a reason that atomic weapons aren't being used. And it led to personal shields and honor, and prioritizing the fencing skills over blaster fire and all that.
Mm-hmm.
As an engineer, I don't think robots are actually very robust compared to biological creatures like humans.
Yeah. The apex would be something of a combination.
Possibly.
I don't know, you create some sort of advanced algorithm to biologically, I don't know. It would be a mix of both.
So, as a more concrete example, a lot of people like talking about nanomachines. Oh, what if we just made a replicator that turns everything into gray goo? Nanomachines are going to destroy everything. And I'm just like, you are describing viruses and bacteria.
Yeah.
Like, literally, the planet is covered in nanomachines already that would destroy your little synthetic nanomachine.
Yeah. That's fair.
I don't think we are ever going to make synthetic nanomachines. We might make like proteins for specific jobs and such, but like, we are going to use the same physics that biology uses. We're just going to start coding new genomes.
Right. Because when you look at like biology, it very much works sort of like a machine.
Yeah.
When you remove, like, I don't know, sentience from it and just look at it as like the mechanics, I guess. It's very much like, yes, this is sending a signal, this is receiving the signal, this is a plus, this is a negative, this is a 1, this is a 0 kind of thing. It's fascinating, actually. And you totally could just could have a super fine-tuned version of that. Like, imagine just looking at how the human body works, feeding that into an advanced AI algorithm and just telling it to perfect all these systems, right? So
you also have to keep in mind that a biological body, like a human, is capable of two things that a robot will never be capable of: building itself from raw materials and repairing itself from raw materials.
That's fair. Unless the robot. Well, I heard ChatGPT just replicated itself. It just upgraded itself. That was in the news.
I always be suspect of science reporting.
Yeah, I know.
Journalists are idiots.
I don't seek it out either, so it's just like, I also didn't follow up and even look. I was just like, that's crazy if it's true, and I move on.
What they are probably saying is they use ChatGPT 4 to make a training set for itself.
That's probably it, yeah. And even if it's not
impressive.
Yeah, it's just doing what it was doing the whole time. But if they like handed it the keys to the car, that's a different story. But I think it would be a bigger deal if that was the case. It was just kind of offhandedly mentioned. I feel like it would have been a whole topic on the internet.
Right.
You know what
so
I mean?
Going back to little tiny drones.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to say that your drone would be able to do much more than a bird could do because of efficiency and energy and production and weight and all this other thing. Little tiny drones the size of mice running around or something, like,
fuck yeah.
I think anything that are going to be made synthetically is going to have a biological analog, and we're going to go, that's actually not that bad.
Right.
It's like,
Because
yeah, guess what? A rat bites you, you could die. You have to go to a hospital and get shots because, like, oh, what if the robots have venom or something? It's just like, yeah, buy it. Fucking scorpions that fit in the palm of your hand can kill you in 30 minutes.
Yep. You think smarter, not harder, right? It's like what I was saying in the same subject, about a combination of the two, biologic and synthetic. You have that rat that was grown in a laboratory and is inherently got like explosives built into it. You know what I mean? They made a rat cyborg, is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? You grow a rat that's like faster and completely obedient, or has like a special brain that you can neural link and then literally drive the motherfucker like a video game, right?
Okay, so it has to get a remote control signal.
Whatever it is, I'm just saying the blend of biological and synthetic, where that would be the perfection. Because then, like, yeah, you would have an obedient rat that would, people would be like, ew, gross, as it runs through the defenses and into the control room, and then just like screeches and blows up, just like a cell phone bomb or whatever. Just to disable the control room, lower the shields, cause a distraction. I don't know. Cut the power. You know what I mean? Those kind of things. You obviously wouldn't send a swarm of these to take out the other army when you just can have a dude on a Gatling gun just mowing them down,
Oh, this kid won't let me get
Sure.
from
Yeah. The only thing I can think of for like drones and rats, bird bombs, is stuff like that. Like, that's where it does make sense, because you're right, it is expensive. Think about how, a cell phone, freaking every cell phone is like over $1,000 now. It's crazy. Like, when you look at the stock price. So yeah, having like a fully functional cybernetic rat, or just even like a fully mechanical little spider drone that can scurry under the door, I don't know, that's still going to be super freaking expensive.
I think we're also proving right now that the physical hardware size required to have something similar to awareness, aka, what the amount of semiconductor chip that you will need to run ChatGPT to put in commands, let alone to understand what it's looking at. The physical size of that processing chip alone is going to be substantially large.
Yeah.
It's one thing to have a receiver where you're doing the computation elsewhere and sending a signal, but we've spent 100 years learning how to deal with signals.
Yeah.
No. Works.
Yeah, they Tesla even demonstrated you can transmit power wirelessly. Like we demonstrate that
Tesla? But if you do that, there are so many side effects to that.
Well,
you would never be able to get a radio signal if you have wireless power. And most things would burn. Like you would have wildfires if you had wireless power.
Well, we don't know, because that was never implemented, and that's what Edison tried to say. And in order to reproduce that, he had to use direct current energy, his own form. Like the famous elephant experiment, he said, this is what would happen. He basically was saying the same thing, and then he just killed an elephant in front of everybody, the old-fashioned way, not the Tesla way. But I digress. I'm agnostic towards all of it. I don't like hold true to any of it.
Actually, I should take that down as a note. It could actually be really interesting to explore a like an alien world that went with Tesla's wireless power.
Yeah.
And they just thought that was the way to do it, and they went down that tech tree instead, because it would be a complete disaster, for the record. You would not be able to have a computer chip. You could not have a computer chip if there is that much magnetic flux.
Well, assuming they keep advancing, then here's the social experiment. Assuming that they keep advancing, and in this scenario they don't have computer chips, what could they do to replace that? Create a similar type of thing, because like life finds a way, right? I mean, there's got to be more.
Life might get stuck. There's actually
that's true.
A book by Asimov, Eternity or something like that, that has one of the most interesting ideas I've encountered in science fiction because the entire concept of whatever this book is actually titled is that the main characters are basically time travel cops trying to make the world perfect by changing history slightly to like make things perfect.
Yeah, not gonna happen.
Well, the plot of the book is people from even further in the future come back to stop them, because what they figured out was that down this timeline, because everyone's trying to min-max the quality of life from this time travel technology, they never developed atomics, which means they never left Earth.
Because they're just too busy dwelling on the past.
They didn't go to the past. It was it's hard to explain.
It's Asimov, of course.
Well, because they put all their research into developing the time travel stuff in order to have like trade between millennia to optimize for a utopia. They never actually got off Earth to actually achieve a utopia.
You know what?
They were just managing a decline.
Gotcha.
You know what? Yesterday we were at a garage sale and I thought, we have an interview with this amazing sci-fi author. So it's kind of cool that I found this ray gun, right? You know what this is? It just makes farts.
It's a fart ray gun.
Which is, I mean, I wish it was a cool ray gun that made cool, like laser noises. But
we'll take a fart soundboard for the podcast any day.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, I guess we'll get it anyway. For $3, we can trigger the dogs with it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I like when it's really quiet in the house. Since we've gotten it, I'll just walk by. It's just sitting on the table. I'll just walk by and just pull the trigger.
It does look like a really cool little sci-fi ray gun, though, right?
Yeah. No, that's the gag, right?
Yeah.
It's right out of Buck Rogers.
Yeah, I guess so. That is the gag.
Yeah.
Damn it. I tried.
Yeah.
Where can we get a real ray gun? Do you know that?
It's probably not far.
Amazon?
Amazon.
What's your favorite character you've written?
I've written Eve. Hands down.
Eve.
She's the AI in charge.
Ah, sick.
Nice.
Just personality-wise, or just like world?
Yeah. So the way it works is she's an AI in charge of 1 billion people, which even for her is too much. So she has a distributed hierarchy of like low intelligence copies of herself. Because like everyone in the city can basically use her like Google, but they don't actually talk to her. They talk to a local copy that knows when to escalate questions, right?
Is she kind of like did you see The Good Place?
No.
Oh, they have they call it a Janice, and she's like a robot kind of lady, but
yeah, like a helper.
Yeah.
The catch there is everyone thinks they're talking to her, but her attention, because her actual attention is split between so many major problems of running a city, she typically can't actually ever talk to somebody. So whenever she does get the opportunity to actually have a conversation with a human, she basically cherishes it.
That's
and I get to write all of her snarky personality. That's great.
So is she like an authority figure then?
She's basically the government.
Oh, okay. So she like kind of polices people and helps them too?
So as the computer system, basically, or more accurately, as the AI that runs the city, that means that she is the one writing the programs that control things like HVAC, that controls the train schedule, the monitors all the security cameras, proposes legislation to the government because the politicians are literally just in it for the clout now.
So they don't even need dispatchers or like any of that, huh?
It's just AI.
Yeah, it's automated.
That's so crazy to think about how many jobs she's replacing. The robots are taking our jobs.
And it's realistic and it is undeniably more efficient. So
yeah. Well, so she'd have to be like quantum level to be able to handle it in like
she has specialized hardware. She has. Are familiar with Rock's law, by the way, otherwise known as Moore's second law?
No.
Every generation of semiconductor that gets basically twice as good costs twice as much to manufacture. So the theory is that because the cost to do better is growing exponentially,
Yeah.
because the cost to develop a better semiconductor keeps increasing exponentially, we're going to hit a point where the economics can't bear the improvement. Even if there is a technological improvement available, we can't afford it.
Right.
So the idea is that the hardware she needs to run, which is at quantum level, is the latest and greatest semiconductor and that's the level that we're stuck at in Bastion.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's kind of cool that that's the apex.
Our he's got his last molars coming in, so he's just been having a rough time. So I'm gonna see if I can get him set up on TV.
Yeah, actually, Krake, how long do we have you tonight? I know you said you
I should probably actually be getting wrapped up.
Okay.
It is now past 10, and I do have a 6 o'clock alarm.
Oh, God bless you, sir. Thank you for champing it. Why don't you just go ahead and plug your stuff for everybody? We could go on and on about power armor and all this stuff.
Right.
I mean,
so in the description, you can find my website, which needs to be updated. I'm behind on that. You can find my Twitter account, which you can follow if you want to follow me on Twitter. But I'm really trying to get my YouTube channel monetized up to 1,000, so I can start doing better content on that and some other things. But that is where I host my book club. Any of my videos will have a link to my Guilded server where it's free to join. Every month, everyone is invited to read a single book. Last month was Notes from Underground. This month, May, we are reading Jack Vance's first book in his Dying Earth series.
Sick.
That was by request of people in the group. More accurately, people were annoying me saying I should watch it or read it. And that is an open panel live stream I do on the first Saturday-ish of every month where I just bring on all the people that read it and we talk about it. That's a lot of fun. But below those links, you can find either my free epic fantasy web novel, which is called The Undying Emperor, which is a no bullshit, absolute goes from nothing to Emperor of the World. No cheating, no skipping, actually conquers the world. And that is free to read because I don't edit it. So you will see some typos, sue me. What is not free
You're
is
human.
a coin because I hate editing, and if I'm going to edit books like that, you're going to pay me to read it.
Yeah.
But I've got 6 of those out now, including my recent isekai novel, Low-Key Connections. How's that for my closing shill?
Oh, it's a good shill, brother. I can't wait to dig into your stuff and talk more about this.
Infinite Money Glitch is one. Very popular.
Oh yeah, Infinite Money Glitch. If you're, I say Westworld, but this is like if Westworld didn't get greedy and they just like stuck to a good concept.
Literally, you're holding a book about every single character is greedy in that book.
Isn't that ironic? But like the author knows when to end it, right? So,
hey, dude, I might do a follow up where they're all suffering the consequences of what happens in Infinite Money Glitch. Because guess what? If you get infinite money, you destroy the entire economy.
Yeah, dude, it can get pretty Lovecraftian and dystopian pretty quick. Like the poor man in the golden goose story. He's a poor man. He gets a goose. The goose lays golden eggs and then becomes a wealthy man. He becomes greedy, kills the goose. It becomes like dystopian so fast. And then I think like it doesn't end well for that dude either. But I digress. Right. Thanks for coming on. You can find you can find the show on Spotify. And you can download episodes for free, pritchardpub.substack.com. Free fantasy content, acpritchard.substack.com. You can find both me and Katie on X/Twitter. A_C_Pritchard. A_C_Pritchard on Twitter. And Moonzilla Tarot for her.
Hey, James, it was a really nice meeting you. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it a lot.
Nice to meet you.
After we read your book, if you want, you got to come back on. But we'll write reviews and all that good stuff, too.
Thanks. I do have a standing invite for anyone that reads my book. If they didn't like it, they are welcome to come on my stream and tell me to my face why it's bad. That is not a challenge to a fight. That is just me as an invite.
But what if we like it? Because I'm pretty sure we're gonna like it.
Yeah.
We can figure something out.
I'll find something.
He'll break the
brawl
rules
about,
in that exception. Yeah. He'll make an exception. But yeah, thanks again, brother, and everybody else who stuck around. Until next time, everybody. See ya.
Cheers.